For holidays, we have Yodel for Your Neighbor Day. Our roomie, our neighbor, Marcus, we asked what movie he wanted to talk about, Housebound, and it is a lot of fun.
It's my favorite late night random Netflix find. Every single person needs to see. Great movie to watch alone at night in a house, especially a house that makes weird noises in the middle of the night. Like anytime you just hear like the AC turn on or something.
Doing so much with a shoestring and a piece of gum. The sets themselves and then the dressings and like the props within them are just so crunchy and palpable.
It skirts the lines of mystery detective.
Very tight script.
It's kind of like the SpongeBob scene of, why are your hands all sweaty? And why are you... you like Krabby Patty sausages. Scooby-Doo haunted housey type vibe. I absolutely recommend going and seeing this. It is both horror and comedy.
Don't be confused if you find yourself laughing.
Hello everyone, welcome to Narratives and Nonsense, where friends talking about random and recent stories, newsworthy or otherwise. I'm Jordan, this boy.
I'm Connor.
Woo! So, we have all sorts of stuff. We're going to be talking about Housebound. It's a 2014 horror comedy movie. It's great. We're going to talk about some news. We got some random holidays for you, but just going into the week. Connor, how was your week?
It's pretty much just work. I'm still nursing my foot, so it's pretty much been couch work.
Yeah.
My little sister's in town, so it's been good to see her.
Yay!
I wish some more here in a bit, so.
Absolutely.
Very
and then
excited.
For that, has she made fun of you for your foot stuff? Like,
no,
are you walking in the room and you limp?
Do that. Especially usually the person that injures you.
Fair. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's what makes a best friend a best friend.
the old was that that was 7th grade?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. It was 7th grade.
No.
I was like, was it 6? It wasn't 6.
Backstory.
No, 6 is the sunburn.
Jordan, instead of being a normal person and telling me to tie my shoes, just stepped on my shoelaces, so then I fell over and fractured 2 of my fingers.
To be fair,
no, there is no to be fair here.
I stepped on your shoelaces consistently for like months.
Yeah, and it's typically not a and that's the thing, when you have a friend who constantly eventually end up hairline fracturing 2 of your fingers. So
it's the thing that was really funny. It only became that problem when we were in New York. Yeah. like it could have happened at any point when it's like a more reasonable time for that to have happened. It's, you know what, I blame New York. Nothing changed about what I was doing. It was the environment. It was a hazardous
this is where we go to the there's no to be fair here. But since then, Jordan has not injured me in any way, or led to my injuring in any way, we'll say.
Yeah.
So
the only injury
I was in Canada for 8 years of that period, but leave that out and call it.
He left the country to avoid me. The only injury is attempted emotional injuries for character development in Dungeons and Dragons. We'll call it that. I think that's as close to skirting that line as I get. Now, I hope. Anyway, goodness, what else for week stuff? This last week was a bunch. So I went down a whole bunch of just nostalgia tripping. It was old dance videos, it was old graduation photos and whatnot. I ended up getting a CD player hooked up to my computer, which does not have a CD slot, so that was entertaining to go, where am I going to stick this? It's just like haphazardly sideways up against one part of the case, and I'm just ignoring that fact. But like, it turns out I have CDs that go as far back as like 1st grade graduation. I had no idea. That was very interesting to go that far back and go, wow, I don't remember any of these people. I remember the teachers, and I remember some of the specific classmates that like I was with up until like 4th or 5th grade kind of stuff. But anything
but until 6th grade, life didn't really start.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it was. Kerchow. So that was entertaining. Somewhere in the midst of that, I did a lot of overtime because work, and then I'm staying up to date with Vox Machina and Bad Batch, and Vox Machina came out in a chunk of episodes. That was a pleasant surprise. I thought it was going to be, all right, here's the first part, and then it's just going to be, trickle on from there. That was not the case. I lost it. I was so happy.
They're confirmed for like 3 or 4 seasons now.
Definitely for season 3.
I think 4 also got it as well.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's all either confirmed.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure we definitely have 3.
Definitely 3.
Either way.
So yeah, Vox Machina has been good, and then
Amazon is in, which is cool as heck.
Yeah, and then Bad Batch. The last episode was like an homage to Indiana Jonesy type vibes. So they go and like plunder a tomb, and there's a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, Jedi Fallen Order connection stuff, because a lot of visual similarity things in Fallen Order. You also do a little bit of that kind of plunder the tomb aspects of it. It was a good episode. I don't think it did much for like the grand scope, but
I'm definitely one of those people, like, I enjoy those off episodes a lot.
Yeah, I enjoyed the last off episode more, and they did a like pod racing new pod racing thing, and that was the episode. And one of the pod racers that they're betting on like ended up crashing, so then Tech steps in, and so it's like, all right, cool, we get to see one of the characters like explore their own element and just crush it. With them going into the tomb, it felt like it was more about a new character, and so it's still a lot of like testing the waters with the person and their dynamics, but otherwise it was more fun adventure than, all right, let's see characters that have been established like do their thing. So curious to see how it connects to the bigger what have you. So that's Bad Batch. Yeah. And then goodness, what, Colorado, we're in the process of potentially having a lot more snow or only a little bit more snow. It's as of the time of the recording, it's supposed to be snowing on the weekend and then not on the Monday, but then it might also snow for like the Monday and
it hasn't really snowed yet, so probably look Monday, Tuesday, usual stuff.
The thing that was fun was it's between like 0s and 10s to 40s and 50s. Good old Colorado. We have no idea what the hell's happening in our weather. So going from that into Newsweek stuff, the big one for us nerds, D&D's open gaming license, they not only like pulled back changes that they were going to do, they went a step further. They scrapped those changes. It's something where there's been like 3 weeks of people pushing back from the community side, like, hey guys, for those unaware, the open gaming license basically makes it so that you can use some of the written material of D&D to like make rule sets. Yes. And you're free to do that, and you won't like get hunted down for it. It's another way of saying like, hi, this is available for anybody's use or whatnot, and it's been in place for basically 2 decades.
Yeah.
And
it's what allows a lot of the third-party publishers to do their stuff.
Exactly. Well. So a lot of people were using it as like supplemental income, or just outright have made livings off of making D&D additional material that works within like the same camp and rule sets and whatnots. Now they've completely reversed course from making an update to OGL, the Open Gaming License, to make it have a more restrictive way of getting things published through it and restricting income that can be made off of it, and having that be backdated for like the last 20 years. They have now completely reversed course, and they outright just went, okay, here is the standard rules. Here you go. It is now published as Creative Commons by attribution. Like, it is just, there you go.
The classic Wizards of the Coast move of doing what they should have done way after they should have done, and pissed everybody off. But
yeah, like it's as full of a reverse course as you can really get.
We got there.
Like, holy crow. So,
but don't worry, we didn't just win; they won too somehow. Still figuring that out.
They patched a wound. And effectively, nothing changes. We'll take that. Going from that to other fun things happening, the Goonies house in Oregon is being purposely like set up to be a place that fans can go and visit. So there was a couple that they live in Kansas City specifically. So it's not like they bought a house and that's where they live.
Yeah.
And when they bought the house, they bought it more like an investment, but one of the guys is absolutely a fan of the Goonies. He one of his friends that lives right next door to the Goonies house, they went and saw the Goonies, all the way back when. So they've made it a very firm point, like, hey, we're not going to set up permanent residence here. We want to make it so that this is available to the fans. From like a legal standpoint, he said, like, we can't legally make it like a museum, or like we can't short-term rent it out to people, or like turn it into a commercial property type of thing. So it's not quite like clear how they're going to do that, or if it's like they have to go talk to some of the governance and try to make something like that happen. But basically, they're like, hey, so long as people treat it with respect, this is here for you guys as fans. And I too am a fan. Let's go. It was very, very cool to see. So that's happening out in Oregon. Other cool property related things over in the UK, there is an OnlyFans creator who is basically making her own affordable housing scheme. So this person, she's 28 years old, mom of two, and she went from being 15,000 in debt in 2019 to now making about 100,000 US. It's not US dollars, it's UK pounds. So whatever that conversion is, but she's making 100,000 pounds a month. A month, like a full 180. And it's something where she talked about how for a while basically they had to rely on subsidized food staple type supplemental things just to kind of get by for her. And she's got two daughters, and now that she's in this better place, she's actively going out and she's buying 8 different properties with the intent of making this an option for helping families like have a way to get by, get on their feet, like super low rent that she's putting out there for one, almost like I've been there, I understand that struggle. And another part is this is kind of a long-term like inheritance investment thing for her kids when they grow up down the line. So that was something that was really cool to see, is just how that 180, because it was something where she was in debt back in 2019, and to basically have your life transformed practically overnight, like that's nuts,
especially through like COVID and stuff.
And just the idea of being able to give back, like super cool. Next thing that was really cool was for 2020, the numbers are in, and there are some really great income increases that happened as far as like big statistic stuff. The median income went up by 7.4%, which beats out the US's inflation rate of about 7.1%. So overall, income increasing. But then, and this is, I think, the cooler part, the specific people that got the biggest income increases were Black, young, or low income earners, which got rates between 10 to 11% income increases. Nice. Which, like, not only is that like just outpacing inflation, which we, when it comes to income increases, have been very bad at doing with the US. Just income, it's just like, all right, that's been this like very, very slow increase, flatliney type of thing.
It's not related at all to the inflation.
We've been experiencing. It has no correlation with it. This last year, it seems like we've actually gone through to push income in a way that is reflective of the world that we live in, which is very interesting and very fascinating and very cool to see that it's kind of almost like a rising tide.
Yeah, hopefully
lifts all ships type
get the
of
background
idea
to it.
Yeah. So that was another cool thing. Going from that to you know, we always got a little bit of an environmental story here or there. There is a French startup that has been hard at work called Air Seas, and they have a product called Seawing. And the idea of it is basically, hi, when it comes to boats, we've known how to sail, and we use wind power through sails. That's been an old thing for quite a while. But when we got engines, I mean, sails became pretty much obsolete. The idea of Seawing is, hi, just because it's not the primary source of power doesn't mean we can't still use it. So it's almost like hybridizing boats and ships so that way you can better increase your fuel efficiency. And in some of their test estimations, so forth, is something where they can potentially cut down fuel costs by about 20%. That's not an insignificant number. And, you know, if you cut down on fuel costs, that makes it cheaper to move about and around and whatnot. The thing that's really interesting with Seawing is, unlike a sail where you just have like big old stick that's just always there forever.
I mean, the mast. God.
Sure. Yes. The mast.
I'm sorry, the big old stick. I apologize.
You don't have to put in a physical mast onto your ship.
It's not a permanent feature of your boat.
Yeah, well, that's the key, is you don't have to install this massive infrastructure, because, I mean, it's a big mast in the middle of your cargo ship that needs space for cargo. With Seawing, what they've essentially been developing is a way to try to consistently have like a packable, deployable kite, essentially. And
we're gonna parasail the ships.
Yeah, and so it's something where you just watch this thing unfold, just, and it will help like pull the ship along, and then when, you know, wind's not favorable, you just pack it right back up. Now it is something where this is still in decently early stages. They've had it on, I believe the number was about 5 vessels, and then they're looking to have 50 ships by the end of 2023. Yeah. Which, you know, it's not an insignificant number. There's a lot of ships to go, though.
Well, and I think in what it's doing, like with all the legislation and pushes for getting clean energy being a thing, I definitely think you can, if it gets enough to a point where it's finished enough,
it becomes something that becomes widely adopted and used.
Subsidized, or just something that starts becoming like incentivized.
Yeah.
Have a thing like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're putting sails back on ships, and it's better for the environment, wouldn't you know? So that was something that was really cool. I think the other thing that's massively important, and I think a big part of why it's been a problem-solving thing, is making it so that it is as easy to turn on and off as possible.
Yeah.
So
have extra work.
Yeah, because if it's something where
more extra work than it needs to be.
Yeah, if you have to go like, all right, we need to bring back 1700 sailing techniques in order to deploy and take down sails, no one's going to do it. Why would they do that? They have engines. So if you can push a button and basically just let the robot unfold and put it back in, way easier. So
push button, save money.
Yeah. Hybrid automated sailing on cargo ships. How about that? And then another really cool thing, just in terms of progressivism type stuff, we have now the first woman speaker for the Navajo Nation. This would be the 25th speaker, Crystalline Curley. And it's something where a bunch of members and former speakers of the Navajo Nation are like, no, this is like historical precedent type stuff. 3 of the former speakers actually attended the winter session that they held for their respective council, and then one of them actually stayed to witness the like swearing in ceremony. So just a little fun adding to the history books, and it's really cool to see. So going from that to random holidays, we have National Croissant Day. Croissant. Yeah. Oh, they're so good. You got a box of them like 2-3 weeks ago, something like that.
I had a Monte Cristo. And I was like, ooh, a little box of croissants.
He was a godsend. He let me have one, and I went, oh my god! And I had it with some hot chocolate, and I was
nice honey butter drizzle down there.
Oh, it was so good. So National Croissant Day. We have a lot of national days today. National Draw a Dinosaur Day, because it's fun.
Quickly, whiteboard me.
Whiteboard. Okay, here.
Speed run.
I want to point out, I have a lot of whiteboards and I have a lot of expo markers just at the ready for anything. So, Draw a Dinosaur Day. The next one is National Bubble Wrap Appreciation Day, which I love that exists. Bubble wrap is always very fun. Let's continue to recycle our bubble wrap once we're done using it, but it allows us to ship things very, very well without breaking them. Bless you, bubble wrap. Going from that to oh snap! What was the time? That was like 20 seconds. Damn.
Speedrun drawer.
Next one is National Inane Answering Message Day. This is for me.
Now, for all you kids, what an answering message is. Sometimes when you call people on your phone. That's where you
when you dial them up
and they don't pick up, and you don't just hit end immediately. There's a message that plays, and usually it'll be recorded by the person. And an inane one is like, they'll be like, hello? And you'll be like, oh, whatever. And then it goes, it's just a message.
Like, we got you.
Yeah, you're like, oh, don't
leave a message at the tone, boop. And you get got. Same thing with another example they use is if you make like a song parody as your voice answering, just things that are just a little bit weird and not practical, but there for the lulz and the fun. I absolutely do the hello. I'm recorded. Teehee. Okay, bye.
Did you ever have the one where when you would call, people would call you, it would play a song?
I know what you're talking about. No,
it was like callback music or something like that.
Like a callback tune or something like that, where you would dial in and as it's going through, you get your own customizable ringtone.
Yeah, instead of hearing like be like, 'cause ain't no
I never had that, but I know of it.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where, man, pre-smartphones, what a time to be alive. That was how we customized stuff. Like, we had GIFs, and GIFs were like, it takes a minute to load, and then you finally get images on your phone. That's where we were, on a flip phone. We lost our minds.
It costed us minutes to text.
Yeah.
It was like 2.5 minutes per text for me, I remember.
Gosh, what a weird...
I had a walkie-talkie feature on my phone. It's the other next
so it doesn't use your minutes because it's on a walkie-talkie.
I think it had a separate pool or something, but it was just nice because I didn't have to open my phone. I could just go boom, 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 boom.
Echo 19.
All it was ever used for was me and my dad screwing around in the department store while my mom was trying to shop.
That's awesome.
That was all we ever used it for, but it was so worth it.
That's funny.
Anywho.
So Inane Answering Message Day, and then National Escape Day. I love it because I think it's very fitting that we're talking about Housebound and it's National Escape Day. But the idea of escape is escapism. If you gotta go and take a week kind of idea. If you've got some vacation days and you haven't used them, maybe start planning that out so you can really take your time. Or if you just have some escapism in your free time, you play some video games, you go and, I don't know, skydive. It's a very broad range of how you can escape your day to day. So National Escape Day.
Go to an escape room.
Or go to an escape room. Yeah. Escape to an escape room where then you must escape. It gets meta that way. And finally, for holidays, we have Yodel for Your Neighbor Day. Yodeling. We have a neighbor.
Is that door always opened?
Is it always open?
No, like,
or is
is
it
the
always
door?
available?
No, we're just stuck in
It's
this
usable.
room constantly.
Hello. This is our buddy, our friend, our roomie, our neighbor, Marcus.
And this is a tunnel between my house and yours.
Yeah.
I don't actually live here.
No.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of tunnels in the walls, so we're talking about Housebound. We wanted to have guest stuff happen, so we asked our friend, our dear here, what movie he wanted to talk about, and he said Housebound from 2014. It is horror comedy, New Zealand on a shoestring budget, and it is a lot of fun. So, generally speaking, for those unaware of like the format of stuff, we talk about like the filmmaking aspects. We try to avoid spoilers. We get into like the plot pieces, and then after we talk about the plot stuff, we talk like other wrap up idea thoughts, what have you. So jumping into the filmmaking of it, man, I really like the structure of the movie. I like the acting. I think it's a lot of fun. The writing of it and all the like twists and turns and red herrings and what have yous was awesome. It's so fun.
I was explaining before, but it's my favorite late night random Netflix find. I found this I was tired. It was a Saturday night. I was browsing Netflix and I found this movie and I was like, every single person needs to see this movie because I can't believe not as many people have.
And boy howdy, yeah, no, I absolutely recommend it. We've had an absolute fun time with it. It enjoyable all the way
like
through.
Mad Max status. It's this like random little independent film that was made in this one's in New Zealand, but like then just was like, it's like, wow, doing so much with a shoestring and a piece of gum.
Yeah. And then for other filmmaking aspects of it, again, I really do think the acting is super fun. It's emotional in places, but it's still very like fun, campy, silly. And I think that's something that's really hard to balance. I think overall, just in terms of like, we've described it as like black comedy, but the comedic horror, I think that's a hard thing to manage that balance well, and I think they do really good with it.
Well, and I think I've always said horror comedy is a combination of two genres that everyone assumes are easy to do, but are actually some of the hardest to do.
Yeah.
And so when you get a good horror comedy, that's always a rare thing, because both of those genres, I think, are way harder to do successfully than people think they are.
And seemingly, like, they're on very opposite sides of the spectrum. Usually when it's like horror comedy, my brain goes to, you have like an homage to horror things, and it's
Right.
more like an inside joke, like the Scream franchise. I think that first instance of Scream is very much like, here's like a parody / love letter satire of sorts to other horror things. And it happens to be funny because we know a lot of the exterior context of what's going on, rather than like a scary movie where it's purely comedy and it just happens to use horror aspects in it. This like it's a fantastic fun balance and very like creative setup, setting, etc. 10 out of 10.
I think in a lot of times when you have horror comedy, like you said, one of them takes a back seat, and you don't get to appreciate both parts of the horror and the comedy.
Yeah.
I think that's where I really like this movie, because there were parts, especially when I was watching it alone, like, this is a great movie to watch alone at night in a house, especially a house that makes weird noises in the middle of the night. It's great.
What Simon, our lovely house ghost.
Yeah. Like anytime you just hear like the AC turn on or something, like, it's a very fun movie. I recommend it to fans of Parasite as well. It's got a very similar premise. Spoilers.
Yeah, so going from that to other filmmaking stuff, I think given the budget they have, man, they kill it with some of the cinematography, the editing, the costuming, and makeup used. Like, that was something that there were a good number of shots where I was just like, ooh, oh, I like this.
Very much like the sets themselves and then their dressings and like the props within them are just so crunchy and palpable. Like,
it feels very realistic
Feels
and lived
like your
in.
grandma's house in the best way.
Yeah. And then I think the last thing as far as film stuff, I felt that like the sound did exactly what it needs to do and the music is functional. At one point, and this might be because I listen to music stuff a lot. At some point in like the finale, I started to realize the music is kind of like looping on itself, but it doesn't matter. Like it's something where that's not the focus of the scene, and I think ultimately it does enough of what it needs to do that it's not I think you put it well that it's one of those things where if it's done well, you won't really notice it. I hunted it down. I'm like, okay, hold on, but how is the music? And then I went, okay, now that I searched for it, I'm aware of what I'm hearing. But otherwise, like, dude, I was there for the rest of the movie.
Isolated like quietness or like weird like tones or sounds coming through to like kind of get that paranormal effect initially.
Yeah. It also does a lot of the like jump scary swell, but a compliment I would give is as soon as there's like unnecessary jump scares, I will check out of a horror movie. Like I'm lost, I'm done, I don't care anymore. It felt like every time that there were jump scares, it is still in the interest of progressing either the stakes or the plot of the story, what's going on within the writing of it. Like the jump scares are, I think, plentiful, but they're utilized well. And that, in addition to this being also very comedic a lot of the time, really cool.
I would also say, and just my 2 cents on jump scares in general, I think a thing, because I don't think jump scares inherently are bad, and I think a thing that a lot of people miss, especially in like cheaper horror moments, is like it's like a boo. It's like no lead up, no thing. The reason a jump scare gets you or like actually freaks you out is because of the anticipation. Like it's the build up, and I think a lot of the jump scares in this movie come from like there is already a sense of like something's off right now in the scene. Like there's the hand grab is kind of like the like things like the everything's like and it's like dude, it's like wah!
Yeah,
like you're expecting something already. The horror has actually already happened. With a good jump scare, like you're already freaked out.
You've got the suspense and the tension leading up to it. It's not just
it's not just a cat runs in front of the camera or someone slams the door as like it's or like, and that's the ones I think I hate the most as well is ones where it's like or like and I've seen it so many times in horror movies where someone's like looking in like they're reading a book that's like spooky things.
Yeah.
But then like something completely unrelated happens to like break the tension, and it's like it's just
oh no, my shelf something fell off. Oh dear God, how did this happen? Well, I set it up poorly like 2 hours ago, and now it fell. Like that's it. It's like, okay, cool, great. You did the bare minimum of setup and payoff, and it has no relevance to the rest of everything happening. Yeah. That does not happen here. This movie, it uses it very well and very effectively, and bless it for it. So, yeah.
I was just going to say, again, on the title of jump scares, before we get off, there's a very good video I'd recommend everyone, just called, the title of the video is, "This Video Has a Jump Scare in It," and it talks a lot about how jump scares work and what makes them effective and what makes them bad.
Bueno. So, transitioning now from the filmmaking stuff into the real plot pieces. I absolutely recommend going and seeing this without knowing about the plot. Know that it is both horror and comedy. I think that's an important thing to be cognizant of.
Yeah, don't be confused if you find yourself laughing.
Yeah, I did, because I was like, oh, it's a horror movie, and then I jumped in and I was like, okay, it's funny, but I'm missing something. I paused it, looked it up again, and I went, oh, and from that point, yeah, this is completely intentional. Okay, now I'm 100% on board. I think go in with that expectation. Otherwise, have a fun ride. Go after it. From here, we're going to start talking plot stuff and spoilers. So, the premise of Housebound, we have Kylie, who is a little bit of a juvenile delinquent, who the overarching idea is that she gets put under house arrest after a failed thieving of an ATM in a very delightful way. her counterpart, her boyfriend, gets knocked out trying to like initially break into the thing. They explode the front half of it, and then after all of this, they end up like grabbing the like chunky safe part of the ATM. They rush into the car. They go to drive off.
She has to drag her boyfriend into the car.
Just gets him into the car. They go to drive away. You can hear alarms and sirens, and there's fire and everything. And when they go to like drive over a little bit of just a little bit of a hill, a little incline, the car gets caught on the middle part between the two tires. It's not getting traction, and she's just like just screams because she can't move and gets caught. Fantastic. What a very funny way to open up. And something that you were noting where with her is that she's kind of a dick. she's not the most likable of people.
She's rather resourceful, though. You can tell she was the brains of this operation.
Yeah. Like they punch a hole into the ATM. They put in basically, I don't know if it was actually dynamite or
explosive or something.
Like they
anarchist pipe bomb.
Yeah.
They like she at least has that much of a head on her shoulders, and then it's just real tough luck with the car. like that's just dude, you didn't count for everything, rip. But yeah. This is a ongoing thing that she's been going through. We'll say she's been caught multiple times. She's gone to and from, and sent for rehabilitation stuff for trying to get her integrated back into society, and it's not been working. So you know what? We're gonna put you under house arrest. They give her the ankle, and they're like, "All right, go back with your mom."
Yep. 8 months.
Yep. And she is housebound for that time.
It's one of those setups where it's like it's implied that this is like her best option is to go live with her mom again, because like otherwise it's just full on state prison. I think they mentioned something about that.
Yeah, and that is not what she wants, but she also does not want to go back home either, because
it's clever too as a way of like turning a house that's not necessarily super isolated into that cabin in the woods thing where like you can't get out. So she's like legally demanded to be there.
The house is directly next to a highway. So yeah, like you're right. In most other horror situations, you could just run out and like flag down a guy and be like, "Hey!" But like because of the premise, she specifically, who's most of the bad stuff's happening to, cannot leave.
If she does, she gets in massive trouble, and basically her life is over at that point. Same thing with like the idea of imposed isolation for a lot of horror stuff. Instead of it being a physical, it's that kind of fenced-in thing, but you also get to expand some of the scope by having it still be in kind of suburb-ish, or like just getting towards rural territory.
Yeah, they mention at one point it's like it's a pit stop, but it's barely that, because the mom's trying to turn the house into B&B, and she's like, people speed by here at like 90 miles an hour. They're not going to stop by in this random house in the middle of nowhere,
and you can walk to your neighbors type thing. Like it is still civilization, so you get to explore some extra stuff while still having the benefits of the horror isolation aspect.
Because they go to a police station at one point that's like within walkable distance.
So she's trapped effectively under house arrest, and she has an interesting dynamic with her mom Miriam, as well as her stepdad Graham, and like the parole officer Amos. And
Amos.
She just outright right from the get-go, she's miserable, she's pissed, she's upset, and she takes it out, she lashes out at all of the different people around her.
Again, I was saying, I think the core theme of this movie in general is how hard it is when you have mental illness to get help for that, and how hard it is for others to recognize what's wrong with you when you have that. And I think this is very clearly someone who's I don't know if it's ever like explicitly stated, but like clearly something happened to the family when she was very young, and she never got over that.
Yeah.
And I think it's it's like really well presented. Like, cause she's just like sitting on the couch all day watching TV, and like mom's like, can you please turn that down? She turns it up, and like just drinking all day. Like, she is not a happy person.
Yeah. Yeah. Overall, there's deeper struggles that are going on that are alluded to throughout the entirety of the film and the characters' individual stories. So as she's living her miserable existence, slowly but surely we get introduced to the horror movie, and it starts off with learning about the house that she lives in is apparently a former halfway house for folks with mental trauma, turmoils, what have you. And there was a murder that happened, quite some time ago. And it starts to seem like there is a ghost that is actively haunting the house, going to and fro. She's hearing noises and going to like the AC turned on. It's like, oh shit, oh god, okay, what's happening? Oh no, oh no, oh no. It starts leaning very heavily into this is going to be a ghost story possession type of dynamic. And I was not prepared for a ghost story movie. Generally speaking, I'm not a fan of them for horror films. I'm very picky with horror. And I was so like ready to check out. I'm like, all right, hold on. Marcus recommended this. Let's give her a chance. Come on now. Let's go through it. Let's see how this goes. And I'm very happy I stayed in. And credit to how this movie is built and put together. I also think it helps that this is horror comedy. Like, if suddenly you start checking out the horror stuff, it's like, all right, yeah, but the interactions are very fun, so you're still kind of drawn back in, almost like a MCU-esque kind of thing. In just, hi, yes, there are action pieces that are happening here and there, but we're still gonna make characters and the acting of said characters endearing, so you're still involved. I think that's something that really speaks to it's a credit to the writing of the movie and how the actors went about it. Yeah.
And yeah, I would also say, like, I think a lot of the comedy from this part of the movie is very much came from me from the very 100% on board mom for like, because they learn about the ghost from the mom going on a radio show and telling everyone that like, oh, our house is haunted. I saw it when I was in one day when I was in the basement and I saw a ghost. And the daughter is just like clearly just fed up, and clearly like it is implied that her mom has been talking about this like basically her entire life.
Yeah.
And she has always found it either, I think, both annoying, and I think also it like implies that it kind of freaked her out as a kid, and she's mad that she's still bringing it up. Like, you can tell there's some like resentment over
this lingering trauma.
Yeah. She's like, why would you say it? Because she's also like extremely upset when she learns that like it was a halfway house and like a murder happened literally in her room.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
as a kid.
yeah. like, mom, you're talking about the wrong shit here. Like, come on, we have things that we could actually be talking about and work through, and instead you're talking about this ghost story nonsense. Come on, and it's interesting because following that, it's very fun to see how they deliver a lot of this information. You mentioned it's on a radio show. Like, a lot of this is stuff that is just like existing in the world. It's not blatantly in the face of like, oh yeah, you that like exposition dumping for the sake of exposition dumping for the characters that don't know what's happening, because she's lived here. And you dive into the backstory elements while still learning what's going on and getting that context as an audience member. So that's something where they do that quite a bit with how they deliver the information is very
it's not just
clever.
A character dumping exposition on you every 5 seconds.
Yes, it's very diegetic. It feels very true to this world that they've built within this house.
I think every clue that is gained is there for a very express reason, and like it makes sense in this world. Like when she finds about the halfway house, it's because they have records of all the people in the basement because they were a halfway house. So you have to have records of all your patients. So it makes sense to be there, and that would be a logical way to figure something like that out.
Yeah, and it turns it a little bit into like it skirts the lines of mystery detective. Yeah. Without, doing a full genre flip into, all right, we're going to be knives outing it now. It's a very, very fun balancing act. Again, really, really real well structured in that sense.
Very tight script. It's impressive.
Yes. So after all of this hullabaloo about ghost stuff, Kylie, our main character, starts to experience weird things happening and hauntings and whatnots, and she's not on board. She is like, okay, there is a ghost haunting this house. This is terrible. This is horrifying. I'm genuinely worried that something might happen. Those kinds of things. And we get a social worker that comes in to do like more of an examination of her psyche, named Dennis, who it's funny with how he comes in and basically is like, yeah, you might be crazy balls. Like, that just might be a thing. We're just going to throw that out there. And it's not a very productive conversation, to say the least. Further adding to it, it's something where while Dennis is in the room, the lights start flickering off. We see a ghost appearance. Lights are off again. It actually went like a sizable amount of time with the lights off and implying things that are happening. Yeah. And then suddenly there are like just metal wire things like poked into one of the guys, and it like dude got messed up in this darkness and off-screen chaos. So
there's also a flash right before the lights go off of a person in like a ghost-looking figure.
Yeah,
quite traditional like sheet sort of like ghost, like dirty ass looking like bed sheet.
Okay, this very well could be a haunting thing, and
it is funny though because Miriam describes the ghost as a ghost like draped in a sheet.
Yeah,
specifically.
Yeah, and it's something where a lot of this kind of ends up falling into, okay, Kylie, you're just lashing out. You have a history of lashing out. You're a POS. Like, come on now. You've always been a juvenile. Now you're just hurting people. Like, you're being ridiculous. Shut up. And they just kind of discredit her and walk away. And from there, she continues living her miserable existence and ends up finding the dentures in one of
it's
the
like a
air
retainer.
vents.
It's got like a couple of teeth in it.
Yeah. It's not like a full mouth. It's just a couple of here and there's.
And because that relates because they know that the girl who died had like bite marks, and they could never find a match, and then she finds in the basement like an old dusty ass retainer that's kind of like shoved in the air vent.
Yep. And from that point, they start to piece together, oh, maybe it's the creepy neighbor next door. The neighbor next door, there's always like lingering smells of death and decay or whatever. It turns out that he is a butcher, so he has the skill set to potentially like conduct a murder
as well as his own retainer thing.
So with that in mind, what's very fun is the parole officer is very like on her side and totally down to do this investigative type stuff with her.
I think, and I'll bring this up later again. Yeah. I think the parole officer is a very good reflection of where clearly another character failed to do their job. The parole officer does that job a lot better.
I agree. It's something where he is giving the attention that's needed for whatever's going on. Like he's being a human being that is showing empathy and care.
As soon as they mention the haunting, he pulls out a tape recorder and goes, spirit that is here, what is your business?
Yeah, like
No, like not even skipping a beat.
like
One of my favorite moments of like the horror early on in this movie is that moment because they like she's like, you think someone's gonna answer? It's like, maybe they already have, and it does like the dramatic music zoom into the tape recorder as like they play back what he just said, and then it just cut off with her voice saying like, you think someone's gonna answer? It's like, I'm running through a filter, maybe
yeah, again, the 10 out of 10 on the acting.
Like Amos's big thing too is he's like very into like surveillance and stuff. Like he's the one that manages her little anklet.
Yeah.
So I love to think that this is just his day job and he's just like ghost hunting on the side or something. Like,
he's
100% so in it.
Like, yeah, he has like all the ghost equipment.
Yeah,
in the garage or something.
So they go to investigate the neighbor because they're like, okay, if there is a murder and there is a very reasonable like this could be the murderer, let's figure this out.
It's interesting because it's Kylie and Amos. So Kylie actually convinces Amos to give her like a 30-minute window where she can be out of her house.
Yeah. So we get past the parole parameters because our parole guy is like totally with her like as supervision, whatever, blah blah blah.
And I think because the goal with that is actually they're trying to get that guy's retainer.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That it would match the one they found.
Exactly. So they skip on over to the neighbor's house. Yodel for your neighbor. And when they get there, she goes into like full juvenile delinquent mode and is like, yeah, I'll break into the house and whatnot. And yeah, like it
is hilarious. She literally takes a spark plug out of like one of the, I think his car, just a car on the thing. She's like,
just one of the junkyard ones.
And Amos is like, oh, well, just check for a spare. And she's like, who would have a spare? And she goes up to the window and then Amos is like, right there. There's just keys sitting there.
Yeah, it's just like, here. Okay, cool. The door's unlocked. You didn't even have to break open the window. Like, come on, Matt. So, going from that, he's staying outside while she goes in and she's doing like the thorough, I'm gonna go and look and find and snoop around. Dude's asleep. And this is one thing where like she's very clever for the vast majority of this movie, going to try to take a retainer out, like taking his denture fixture out of his mouth as he's sleeping. That's ballsy. I also think it's dumb. But you know what? To be fair, she is trapped in a house and very well thinks that there could be a murder that has happened. So, yeah, I'll buy it.
You're already there. Like,
yeah. Okay, cool. You might very well piss this person off, but you're experienced enough to know how to get the hell out of Dodge if you really, really needed to and just leg it back to the house. So she attempts to, and cue a fun little chase where the guy wakes up. Come on. She legs it. She's making her way back, and the parole officer ends up getting caught in one of the like traps.
Like a game trap.
Yeah, because again, this guy like he is a butcher, and he like this is how he makes his eatins. Is he just does a lot of hunting and trapping and whatnot. So this is where I really admire the cleverness of them making the best of a situation that's happening. She will continue running, but before she does, to make sure that the parole officer is good, she ends up covering him with like
it's like the shell for a truck.
Yeah, like that you put on the bed for the back end of the truck. We'll just hide him really quick. Legs it. Super cool. It's also very fun to see her like demonstrate some kind of care for the parole officer for Amos. And I think that's a little bit of like, okay, yeah, we're seeing her grow a little bit more as a character that we can be on board with as an audience. Going from that to her getting back to the house. It's her mom, her stepdad Graham, who Graham also gives off like weird vibes.
He's very quiet. He's just kind of like
super extra stoic, just yeah. When she runs back in, she still is like very much, oh my gosh, I'm being pursued, and goes and stabs the person behind her at the door, and it's Graham. It's not the neighbor. Oh no,
And
she messed up.
It is like blood gut. Like her face gets covered. She stabs him with like garden shears.
Yeah.
It's like a whole thing.
Like it is
It's like right in the stomach, I think.
Yeah, it is as bad as you can mess up. And my girl, you're on parole for house arrest. Like you're in trouble. Not a good look. So with that, Graham, I believe, is taken away to the hospital, and then we do. I forget if Amos follows or if it's just like she's still got window for parole, but I remember that she was with that for like a moment. But when
like when they go to the hospital,
yeah,
I think that was approved. For
yeah,
them to go.
Yeah, like this is something where your people are humans. They understand.
Exception.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And also, as we were talking about before, I really like the scene that follows that, because it's another like step in this character becoming a better person. Is like she's like, well, shit. So she cleans the whole house, because she's been like making a mess the whole time she's been here.
And
like,
and Graham's blood and stuff too. Like yeah. So she starts doing that, and the parole person is speaking with the neighbor. It's something where like it turns out you just had a conversation with the guy
sneaking around. Initially, the neighbor confronts him. I think his name's like Madge, something like that.
Yeah, the neighbor's rightfully upset. Like, dude, what are you doing on my property? Like, what's the deal? And he's like, well, and
things.
Yeah, and the neighbor starts opening up and is just like, yeah, dude, I'm a hunter. I butcher. That's my living. That's what I do. And starts talking about this guy that he used to house named Eugene. Like super, super clever, super engineer, very focused, very quiet.
I think the
to
thing
himself.
he specifically mentions is like he could disassemble and reassemble an engine in like no time flat or something like that.
Yeah, and it's something where, as an audience member, you also get like the idea that he might be willing to do that same kind of thing with a body potentially as well, because they mentioned a squirrel or
it's a dog or like a dead dog or a raccoon or a
small animal.
Yeah, he found some dead small animal and dissected it basically, and Farmer got a little
he's unnerved.
Got a little reasonably concerned about that. They mentioned that he was drinking at the time, and they mentioned that's a cool part. Like, it's not really confirmed. They mentioned he did something, and all he says like the only thing I felt I was qualified to do. So like we're led to believe either like beat him or he did like something or like,
chased him off or
and so that chased Eugene off, and then there's like I love the reveal, as you were saying, because she's cleaning the house and she finds like a hole
in the wall.
The wall. And then right as he says, like, Eugene was very interesting, he only lived in the crawl space.
Yeah, he liked the confined, cramped environment. He liked this claustrophobic little section of where he lived when he was with me. Right as in the Housebound section of Kylie's life, she's like, what the frick is this? And finds out that there's like basically behind the wall hallways in their own house. So the parole officer and her are learning about Eugene at the exact same time. I love that. It's so cool, and it just, I think, ramps up a lot of the tension, and it makes it so everybody's, practically speaking, on the same page. So all of this like ghost haunting stuff's, oh my gosh, there might just be a dude living in the walls. And when she finds him, I mean, we don't talk about Bruno. Like it is this full on like rat man boy who just like full black lips, long ass nails, just disheveled human being thing. And she books it. Rightfully, she's terrified. She starts like it's really fun because, again, going off of the idea that this guy is very engineer minded, like he can do patch up repair and he knows like where to step correctly, so that way it's not a problem from like the behind the wall infrastructure. She has no clue. Ends up like falling through part of the floor at one point because she just steps in the wrong spot. And she's on the main floor with the kitchen. She manages to find like another hole in the wall, and it turns out that this was a hole that was in the pantry, and she just like leaps out of it, books it
out. It's a great scene.
Yeah, books it out of the front door because she's terrified for her life. She's like, oh my gosh, this dude that very clearly might have murdered a kid in my room, like, has been here this whole time. Books it, gets into the truck, and drives to the police station. Funnily enough, passing the parole guy at the same time, who's driving to the house after having just visited the neighbor. She, at the police station, is freaking out. The police are completely checked out, disinterested. They're just like, all right, so you're supposed to be on parole. What the hell are you doing here? And she's like, oh my God. Okay, so you were putting the vacuum back, and what was the rest of that? Like, not giving her the time of day. Completely useless. It was great. So the cops, the cops are not paying attention. The parole officer shows up because, you know, he's got a little tracker. He knows that she's clearly not at the house, and is when they're about to call the parole folks and, you know, get her in more trouble, the parole guy shows up, and Amos is just like, no, like, everything she's saying about there being a guy that lives in the walls, completely true. Like, it's absolutely accurate. I just talked to the neighbor. Like, it's a thing. I believe that Amos ends up staying with the cops to probably do like a report or something, while the other cop, the social worker Dennis, comes back, and Kylie, all of them go back to the house with her mom, like, to go and find out about this stuff.
Graham is still in the hospital.
Yeah, Graham's still in the hospital. So when they return to the house, she goes straight to the closet where she found the
away.
Yeah, where the wall fell apart, and there was the whole behind the scenes thing. She goes, and it's solid. There's just wall there, and she's like, yeah, it was there. It was there. And then in the midst of like going back and forth, like, maybe you're just a crazy person, you know, it's a coping mechanism for the stress of having to be back in this house, and your mind is justifying what's going on. I think it's a tee-hee we're throwing a red herring in, but I personally didn't buy it. I think it was just like we're leading it.
They do find a baggie of like old pot in her possession, which she hadn't been smoking, but they're like, well, obviously been smoking this.
Oh, yeah, you're just crazy pants.
There's a few things that like make her seem as an unreliable narrator.
Exactly. So I think it's more of a, let's justify her being crazy in universe. As an audience member, I think it's it could be a thing, but really it's something else. She rushes over to the pantry and just literally starts tearing out the shelves. She throws one of the shelves at one of the cops. It's really fun. like again, she's a little bit of a dick at some of these places, and
this is at least more justifiably so.
This absolutely. So when she does all this, she starts pounding on the pantry, and it's not budging. I love it because we've learned that Eugene is an engineer. He's very crafty. He's very handy. Like, he absolutely is able to just put a wall back like where it needs to go or what have you. Like, he just replaces it. Yeah, he just replaces it, fixes it. All right, it's better now. Done. Easy. So with this, they go, all right, you know what? You've left your parole parameter. You think there are people in the walls. You said that this house is haunted by ghosts. You've stabbed somebody, and you've like, this has not been a good time. I think it's in your best interest, in probably the safety of the other people in the house, that you go to like a proper institute. Like, we're going to take you out of here. We thought this might be the better place to go. That's not the case. We're getting you out. She's not very pleased. But while they're having this discussion, her mom like provides some cookies for the social worker who starts eating it. And we get a real, again, this is one of those like shots where I was just like, ooh, I love what we did with the cameras here, where we get some extreme close-ups on him eating, and he's got just a couple.
He goes like, ah, and then he pulls a retainer out, like the one that the neighbor had.
Yeah, and she is like, hold on a second here. So she nervously is like, you know what? Yeah, I agree. I will leave the house and we'll move me somewhere else. Hey, Mom, can I talk to you for a second? For what? About in private for woman stuff. Mom, oh my God, I think it might be him. And she's like, what are you on about? What are you talking about? And they end up confirming that Dennis was involved with the halfway house, like it with, again, the halfway house records that are in this household. They confirm those details. They know that there is at least that minor connection. There could be some plausibility to Dennis knowing more than he's letting on as a social worker. When they go back into the room, he's not in the room. So they're like, okay, a little bit weird. Where is he? Where is the cop? And he emerges not from the ground floor bathroom, but from the upstairs bathroom. And she's like, so where did you guys go? And he's like, oh, I just went to the bathroom. So you both went to the bathroom like at the same time? He's like, yeah. And how did you know there was a bathroom up here? And why are you like, it's kind of like the SpongeBob scene of, and why are your hands all sweaty? And why are you, you like Krabby Patties, don't you, Squidward? Like, it's that kind of vibe almost of them putting together. And at this point, Kylie's got a knife. Like, she's ready to like live or die. She's ready for it. Cue a very fun finale. Dennis is absolutely the person that murdered the girl all those years ago. And he, at this point, it's well, the mom and the daughter, they gotta die, they gotta go, we're done with this. We still don't know where the cop is, so there's a lot of chasing around and tense scenes as they're trying to escape this murderer.
I think another thing this movie does well, and what makes the finale work so well, is like any movie like this, I think it's very important to give you kind of an anatomical map of the location, and I think this movie's done a really good job of that so far.
Yes.
So you're like intimately familiar with this house now and like where things are, and so it's very easy to follow this fast-paced action now because you've had this whole movie to understand how this house is laid out and where things are. Again, with how they did the sets, it really does feel like this could exist.
I think it is just a house.
It could be, you know, there's enough of that price thing where maybe all they have to do is they build a very minor set for the behind the walls, and that's all they got to add if they even needed to do that. Like, really, really good. So they end up hiding in the bathroom, shutting the door, locking it.
Same bathroom Dennis came out of earlier.
Yep, they're like fighting for their lives here. Dennis like ends up getting a saw and is just starting to cut through the door. Very Shining, here's Johnny-ish kind of vibe. And when they're trying to like find a way out, they end up discovering the body of the cop.
He was just propped up in the shower.
Yep.
Falls out.
And he's got a corkscrew in his back. He's been murdered by Dennis. And it's like, uh-oh, this is not good. So Kylie is trying to get the corkscrew out of the guy's back. And the mom's like, what are you doing? And she's like, look, unless you got a weapon to defend yourself on, this is what we have. So please, can you just lend me a hand here. They end up managing to get into the behind the walls stuff with Eugene, who is now helping them, which is very, very cool to see that kind of turnaround. And at some point, Kylie ends up hurting her leg, and Eugene like brings over a first aid kit and is just like, well, I'll put it back when we're done with it, but here you go. You need it. They go to clean out the wound with a jar that's nearby, and they're like, oh, that's not water.
Don't use that.
That's I got biological needs here, folks. Uh-oh. So they just put the jar back, and there's actually like a really weirdly wholesome interaction between the trio, where we learn that Eugene like kind of cares. Again, it's very Encanto, we don't talk about Bruno thing, where he has been drawing out like little moments in their lives.
He almost has his own little photo album.
A little scrapbook that he's put together, and it's, I think the one that like got me was when Kylie leaves. He has Kylie like in the foreground of the drawing with the mom like standing there watching her go, and then Eugene just like very, very, very subtly peeking out of a window watching her leave. It was so, I don't know, it that one got me. That was the one where I was like, oh shit, that. It's interesting how
it become like it, because it puts Eugene in almost like a family position of like, because he was around for all this stuff, so it's like he does know them a bit deeper than I think a lot of other people would.
Yeah, like he has a very,
he was around for it.
He has a very intimate, personal relationship, even though it's a little bit
disconnected.
Yeah, parasocial in how it came to be.
And I think yeah, that's like it's just again such a masterclass of like the backstory that they never explicitly tell us. Mm-hmm. Like there is never a time where they sit down and it's like, here's how Kylie's childhood was, here how their mom was, but like this is a great scene that like implies a lot without giving us any like explicit answers. Like I think it's like, this is the time you stole your mom's car or something, or like she did something really big.
There's that. There's this is when you were drunk, passed out on the floor because you had too much. Mm-hmm. Like just little snippets of her struggling.
I remember the one that got me. I don't remember what it was, but it's like here. It's like Kylie doing something like really like over the line, and then he just adds like, you cried a lot that night, and I was like, ooh,
got him. Oh.
Yeah.
It's a great moment. While this is going on, Dennis is trying to like find them in the house because he knows that they're there and they're somewhere behind the walls somewhere. Bing bong. Uh-oh, the door. He's like covered in blood and he is holding a knife behind his back and goes to answer the door. It's the parole guy. And he sells the idea that, oh my God, they were absolutely right. Eugene is insane balls and just stabbed and murder and in blood and it's bad and I don't know where they are. And Amos, the wholesome boy, goes, oh, no worries. I have her tracker. I can find her. Sure. It starts walking through, and there's a really funny moment where Dennis is the social worker is holding a knife behind Amos, and he turns around and he's like, "Oh, thanks, bud."
He's trying to pry open the door with something. He's like, "I need something sharper," and then like he turns around and the guy's like with the knife, like I'm gonna stab him. He's like, "Oh, thanks." And he grabs the knife just out of his hand.
Oh man, it's very, very fun. So Amos at some point in this gets knocked out, and
it was right after he grabs the knife. Dennis grabs a fireplace poker and just bashes him over the head with it.
Yeah, Dennis gets the tracker, so now he will find them, because boy howdy, she's got her handy dandy little ankle thing, and that's just real inconvenient. I tell you what, it's caused a lot of problems in this movie. So they end up getting chased out onto the roof, and first they get chased behind the scenes in the back Eugene's corners world. Eugene's little and Dennis is about to like properly get him when they take the jar of piss and just whoosh.
It's nasty.
It's
That's
gross.
honestly, like, there's only a couple like really gory shots in this movie. This is probably the worst one.
Yeah. This is the one where it's gross out. Like, so from there, they get chased out onto the roof. It's rainy. It's perfectly drab, dark. Like, I don't know if there was thunder, but it sure feels like that kind of vibe. Very Scooby-Doo haunted housey type vibe. Out comes Dennis, like, trying to crawl over another part of the roof.
It honestly reminded me a lot of the last scene in Beauty and the Beast as well.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is the mom and the daughter are like scrambling for their lives here, and they end up getting one of the roof tiles, and Kylie, like a boss, just frisbees it across the way into Dennis's face. Whack! Down he goes. He falls off of the roof, and he's on like the patio, just on his back, completely motionless. And they're like, "Oh, it's done. We're good. No more problems now." They go back into the kitchen, and they have a very, like, real conversation in the sense of, I buy this full, like, 100%, where the mom's like, "I'm here to report a murder, an attempted murder.
Do you want to talk to them?
Yeah. like they have this back and forth, and Eugene is there for a second. He ends up getting stabbed, and lo and behold, Dennis is still alive and kicking. Eugene, like, I think, scurries back into his hidey holes. Yep, from the kitchen, and Dennis manages to knock out Kylie and takes the phone wire and starts strangling the mother. As Kylie is like starting to come to, you have Eugene just like, again, I really love the camera shot of it. You have like his decrepit nails, just misshapen, dirty hand, just kind of tap, 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 like, wake up, here, use this.
And hands him the meat fork that was used to kill the girl, that Dennis used to kill the girl in Kylie's room.
Yep, way back when. And with it, she grabs it and right into the I was gonna say jugular, but that's not quite right.
No, it's the chin kind of.
Yeah,
The soft, fleshy bit.
Just underneath his jaw. So he's starting to bleed a little bit. And as she undoes the wire for her mom's, a little bit blue-lipped, but able to catch her breath now, we see Dennis's reaction as he sees the
little wire coming out of the meat fork
all the way through, and we follow this wire to Eugene's little contraption stuff as he starts do, and Dennis is like, oh shit, and just his head explodes as just a surge of electricity just gets shot through it, and everyone's like horrified,
covered in blood.
Oh yeah, she actually, again, like, dark humor moment, Kylie actually goes it like spits out a chunk.
He's like, brain matters on his head.
Yeah. It's gnarly. It's funny.
Miriam's just like caked.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So
good.
So after this whole affair, we get a time skip, and our lovely parole officer is letting. Is cutting off the ankle bracelet. You can keep it if you want. Fuck that. I hate that stupid thing. This is I hate everything. This is terrible. And her mom is like filming the occasion. The battery dies, and they're like, "What? I was charging this or whatever." and Kylie's like, "Eugene!"
Smash cut the credits.
Yeah. It's a very like wholesome, like, everyone's getting along, and Eugene is now just like an accepted part of the family, like implied this is the new status quo and things are better. Very fun movie, very fun ride. for big picture stuff, I think the thing that was most exciting in a first watch is all of the twists and red herrings of where this plot could go. Because again, the moment Ghost thing happened, I was like, all right, this could be an interesting ride. And then it's like, okay, no, the Ghost aspect is just one part of it. That's Eugene disguising himself as a ghost or moving about with the bed sheets and whatnot. Like,
I think
every one of those weird interactions, it's Eugene. Oh my gosh, it makes sense.
it's one of those great movies, like all mystery movies. I think it benefits so much to watch it again.
Yeah,
Because it works so well. Like everything when you watch it a second time just fits into place.
it's just
You understand. Like you understand why all these things happen. Why
why one dude gets mangled when the lights
Yeah.
are out. It's because like Dennis is right there. Like,
like one of the first like haunting moments is there's like a bear with like a recording thing in it.
yeah.
Like starts talking.
Yeah,
and,
the
like,
teddy bear.
And like it like shows up in the shower after she like smashes it because it keeps like turning on. Like,
Yep.
it shows up and it's like, oh, that was Eugene trying to talk to her in a way, trying to
Had
like,
a tape in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to convey this information. And notably, one of the things that's made very clear is that people think maybe Eugene was the one that killed the girl all those years ago. And Eugene is understanding of that fact and is like, yeah, I didn't tell anyone because they might take me away. I'm not willing to do that. Like, I want to still live my existence.
And yet, coming back to what I kind of hinted on earlier, I think it does a really good job of like portraying again like how it's hard to be in like these systems that are designed to help with mental health, but often don't have people that are as qualified as they think they are to deal with these kind of people. Because I think that's the perfect example between Dennis and the parole officer. Amos, yeah. Dennis and Amos are the perfect foils for each other. And I think Amos is the exact example of what that girl who got killed, because like it's implied that Dennis got like fed up and couldn't take anymore because apparently that girl was a lot like Kylie.
Yeah.
Just very
Why don't they listen to me is one of the lines Dennis has said.
and it's like clear Dennis is the kind of person that wants to tell people what to do and they do it and then everything's better if they just listen to what he tells them what to do. And then Amos is such a great counter to that because all he does to help Kylie is be there. Yeah,
the man is an actor and a great improv person. All he does is yes and boy howdy does he get far.
But it's also because he also isn't afraid because there's a few moments where he actively like, hey, the way you treat your mother is shitty.
Yeah.
Like you are being a piece of shit to your mom for no reason, and I don't understand why.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I really like that dynamic. Like that is one of the like most unexpected friendships of this movie is Amos and Kylie. They're just
absolutely. Like it's goodness, it feels like it's one of those things where there's almost a little bit of a reoccurring trope or stereotype of here's like government agent thing that is there to like cause a problem. I think my brain immediately goes to with Lilo and Stitch, like Cobra Bubbles. Like he does have their interests at play, but ultimately he is a antagonistic force, and it's really cool to see that Amos the parole officer is absolutely a support the whole way through. And I think like theming, that's a really cool message that like this movie very much sets, especially with Eugene. It's like these people aren't here for you to fix them or put them out of sight. Like these people with these problems exist, and it's best if you just live with them and treat them like people. Like I think the very end of the movie kind of conveys that. It's like, yeah, Eugene is just like, he's a little quirky, but now he's just like part of the family. Like, he likes to live in walls. That's not really the end of the world. Like there's an otherness, but you can still accept them as individuals that they are. Especially because, like, I know, like, because I was almost a psych minor, almost a psych major, but then I changed my mind. But it's like, because I know a halfway house is technically, like, it's for people that were declared like criminally insane. And like it's supposed to be a transition period before they're like able to get back on the street. So that like especially with that setting of like what this place used to be is like really good at like sort of talking about that whole subject of what does insane look like. Yeah, it also kind of feeds in a little bit to the kind of ongoing stereotype of things like halfway houses or insane asylums or so on and so far are like places where bad things happen. And I think in this case it's a bad things happen not because of the people that were being treated there. It was the way that it was handled, I think, is the general sentiment when it comes to things like insane asylums.
I think, Connor, you had a very good point, but like before we were talking about this, about like the person that it turns out to be the most dangerous in this movie is the one that acts the most like civil. Like the social worker is the one who's the most like, he's the most
accepted
polite.
norm.
Yeah, he's like, he's well dressed, he's polite, he talks very like eloquently, like he's clearly like from some like sort of wealthier like position, like he's clearly not struggling for money. Like that's the person that turns out to be the person that's the actual threat, not any of these people that are like mentally unwell. They're just victims in and of themselves. Like it's this guy who got sick of them existing, basically.
He couldn't just be awesome like he could.
Absolutely. So it's something where they funnily enough, they also have, while he very clearly is the bad guy, he has a couple of moments where he is right in the sense that he'll say things like, this is what happens when you don't communicate about your problems, kind of thing. Like, he has a point. He's not executing on that point correctly. Like, he's not doing a good job of, going down that line of thought, but...
Again, as someone who's like almost a psych minor and like has like my mom's a psychologist, child psychologist, like it's so interesting because like you find these people that understand the theory of these things, but not why they're learning it, and that's very much what he feels like. He knows on paper what the books say to do about mental health, but he doesn't understand like deeply on an emotional level.
He doesn't know why they should communicate or what to do with it if they did.
He knows how to do the math. He doesn't know why the formula exists. Almost. Or like when to use the formula. It's a very good movie. I also really like the fact that it ends as wholesomely as it can. Like it's surprising how it comes about. And so it feels good, man. So
also, I just want to point out one relationship we didn't really touch on, which I also really like that we kind of talked about beforehand, was the stepdad and Kylie have a really great moment after he gets back from the hospital where like she helps him, like I think he's building some like woodworking thing or something, and like she helps him out with it and like just have an actual talk for like, I think it's implied like for kind of the first time in their relationship.
He doesn't talk a lot in general. Themes, which there's a good reason for that.
And it's like implied that he has like a really bad, like he says he had like a really bad upbringing, and like that's kind of why he's very quiet,
which is fun because it's kind of a way they can relate to each other, with Kylie having issues with her mom and possible dad.
And
I don't think we ever get like any like actual answers to what happened to her, like her actual dad.
No.
Which I think is another great part of like letting the audience fill in for that sort of blank spot. Like, clearly bad things have happened to this whole family for a long time, and I like that they don't give us all the bad things that happened.
No, and I think in terms of what services the story and what doesn't, they understand how to be very efficient in that from the writing aspect. Like I think let's go back to Eugene's scrapbook. I think that gives everything that we really need to know. Is things happened, they happened. It's how they reacted and how that weight carries with them, and the aftermath of these characters' individual emotional contexts that informs what this story is. Not like, I don't know, let's say it was a car crash or a drunk driver or a suicide or so on and so forth. That doesn't matter in this story. Exactly. It's how they feel about it that does. And that, I think, is very refreshing. It's really cool. Tons of depth.
Similarly, because I mentioned before, and I'm like thinking back on it actually now, like reflecting based on what you just said. We know that the girl that got murdered was a lot like Kylie, and we know that from very few bits of information. Like very little is said, but they just immediately convey the aspect that like this girl was a lot like Kylie, and that's all we need to immediately feel sympathy for this like person and like understand kind of where that parallel resides.
Yeah, and I think the final thing I would say as far as like bigger scope things, we were talking about how Kylie starts off this movie being really unlikable, and by the end, I mean, we're hardcore rooting for her and the connections that she has with all these other different people, and it's really cool to see just how much she as a character has kind of developed, and it's almost reflective of the handling of how her case ended up and how it could have ended up with the example of the murder from years and years ago kind of thing. So yeah, ultimately I absolutely recommend.
Amazing movie. If you're really into Evil Dead, it's very good kind of watch for that kind of thing too.
Yeah, and just for, again, a little bit of tone setting, if we didn't do enough for you, Peter Jackson thinks it's amazing, so... yeah, Peter Jackson went, dude, this movie, though...
Sauce for the Lord.
He's like, this is fun. So, that said, Marcus, where can we check you out at?
Not really anywhere these days.
At some point,
if you're lucky enough, you can view my Twitch channel, Eldritch Funky.
Ayo.
Sometimes happens, but it's
Marcus is mine.
Otherwise, Connor, we know where you are.
As always, here every Monday.
Woo-wee! Same for me, and then on occasion, we may be doing some Kingdom Hearts streaming with myself and my buddy John. Otherwise, very, very fun time. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your week. You guys stay happy, stay healthy, stay sane. Woo!